Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Pain heals, glory fades. But the truth behind the replacements is far more shocking than you remember. From real injuries to hidden sacrifices and unbelievable casting secrets, these 15 facts reveal a side of the film Hollywood never wanted you to see, and the most surprising one changes everything. Number 1. Keanu Reeves trained like a real quarterback. What looks natural on screen in The Replacements is the result of a level of preparation most audiences never see. Keanu Reeves didn't treat Shane Falco like a typical role, he treated it like a responsibility to get everything right. Instead of relying on editing tricks, he committed to learning the position from the ground up. He trained with a former NFL quarterback and experienced coaches who pushed him through real drills, forcing him to understand not just how to throw, but how to think like a quarterback under pressure. That meant mastering the smallest details. Footwork became second nature through endless repetitions of dropback. Timing had to be precise, because even a slight hesitation would look artificial on screen. He also studied how quarterbacks lead a huddle, how they speak, how they recover after mistakes, and how they maintain authority when everything is going wrong. Those invisible elements are what separate a believable performance from a superficial one. The physical cost was real. Reeves took actual hits during training and even suffered a nerve stinger, which was especially risky given his previous neck surgery. But he continued, because he understood that authenticity required sacrifice. He also studied legends like John Elway, focusing on posture, mechanics, and decision-making rather than imitation. What makes this effort so important is the effect it has on the entire film. Because Falco feels real, every scene around him gains credibility. The audience doesn't question what they're seeing, they believe it. And once that belief is established, the story becomes more than entertainment. It becomes something that feels lived in, grounded, and unexpectedly authentic. Number 2. The film was inspired by the 1987 NFL strike. The story behind The Replacements is not just creative imagination, it comes from one of the most unusual moments in NFL history. In 1987, professional football was thrown into chaos when players went on strike, demanding better conditions and pay. For a league built on consistency and spectacle, this created a crisis that threatened to disrupt everything from television contracts to fan loyalty. Faced with that pressure, team owners made a controversial decision. They replaced the striking players with temporary rosters made up of overlooked athletes, semi-pro players, retirees, and individuals who had never truly broken into the league. These replacements were not expected to succeed. They were seen as placeholders, a way to keep games going until the real stars returned. But something unexpected happened. Some of these teams, especially the Washington Redskins, didn't just survive, they won. Using replacement players, they managed to win every game during that stretch. It forced fans and critics to reconsider what really makes a team successful. Talent matters, but so does chemistry, hunger, and the willingness to prove something when no one believes in you. The film captures that idea by creating the fictional Washington Sentinels. But the emotional truth remains the same. The tension between opportunity and doubt, between being overlooked and finally being seen, drives the story forward. Even the quarterback dynamics echo real-life conflicts from that era, where leadership and perception could shift everything. This real-world foundation gives the film its depth. It's not just about underdogs winning, it's about what happens when the system breaks, and the people it ignored are suddenly given a chance to redefine themselves in front of the world. Number 3. Gene Hackman nearly passed on the role. When Gene Hackman was first offered the role of Coach Jimmy McGinty, he didn't immediately accept. At that point in his career, Hackman had already built a reputation for choosing roles carefully, and stepping into another sports-related character came with risks. He had already delivered a memorable performance in Hoosiers, and repeating that image could weaken its impact. What made the difference was how the character was presented. McGinty wasn't written as a loud, aggressive coach driven by speeches and intensity. Instead, he was calm, thoughtful, and focused on giving overlooked players a chance to prove themselves. This subtle shift turned the role into something new. It wasn't about repeating a formula, it was about exploring a different kind of leadership. Once Hackman agreed, his approach shaped the entire production. He treated the role seriously, acting as if he were coaching a real team rather than performing in a comedy. That mindset influenced everyone around him, creating an environment where the story felt grounded instead of exaggerated. His performance became the emotional anchor of the film. While the players bring unpredictability and humor, McGinty provides stability. He believes in potential where others see failure, and that belief drives the narrative forward. What makes this decision so important is the effect it has on tone. Without Hackman's grounded presence, the film could have drifted into pure comedy. With him, it gains depth and balance. His initial hesitation ensured that when he finally committed, he brought a level of authenticity that elevated the entire story into something more meaningful. Number 4. Real ex-players were cast as replacements. To make the football feel real in The Replacements, the filmmakers made a crucial decision. They cast real athletes alongside actors. This choice wasn't just about appearance, it was about movement, instinct, and credibility. Professional players bring a physical intelligence that can't be taught in a short time. These athletes understood how to run routes, deliver tackles, and react under pressure without overthinking. That natural instinct allowed the film to capture moments that felt spontaneous rather than staged. Instead of relying on quick edits to hide limitations, the director could use longer shots, letting plays unfold in a way that resembled real football broadcasts. Former NFL quarterback Jim McMahon played a key role behind the scenes, guiding actors through the nuances of the game. He taught them how players communicate, how they position themselves, and how they carry themselves on the field. These details might seem small, but they create a sense of authenticity that audiences can feel immediately. The impact of this decision goes beyond visuals. It reinforces the film's central theme. The story is about players who were overlooked, yet still capable of performing at a high level. By including real athletes, many of whom had experienced similar struggles, the film blurs the line between fiction and reality. The result is a level of realism that strengthens every scene. The collisions feel heavier, the plays feel sharper, and the overall experience feels closer to watching an actual game. It's proof that sometimes the simplest decision, casting the right people, can have the biggest impact on how a story is perceived. Number 5. The injuries look real because many of them were. Football is a physical sport, and when a film tries to replicate that intensity, it has to make a choice: play it safe and risk looking fake, or push closer to reality and accept the consequences. On the set of The Replacements, the production leaned toward realism. Because many of the players were real athletes or experienced stunt performers, the action sequences carried genuine force. Every tackle and collision was carefully planned, but even with precautions like hidden padding and controlled choreography, the physical toll was unavoidable. Bruises, soreness, and minor injuries became part of the process. For Keanu Reeves, this added another layer of commitment. He didn't stay on the sidelines during intense moments he participated. He took hits to maintain the integrity of his performance, reinforcing the idea that Falco wasn't just acting like a quarterback, he was living it. What makes this detail important is the effect it creates on screen. The impacts feel heavier because they are grounded in real effort. The fatigue visible on the players isn't simulated, it's earned. That authenticity changes how the audience experiences the film. Instead of watching something staged, viewers feel like they're witnessing something closer to reality. And that connection makes the story more engaging, more believable, and more memorable. It's a reminder that authenticity often comes with a cost, and in this case, that cost helped define the film's lasting impact. Number 6. The cheerleader bar scene was added during rewrites. Some of the most defining moments in The Replacements weren't part of the original blueprint, they were discovered along the way. The cheerleader bar scene is one of those unexpected additions that ended up reshaping how audiences connect with the story. In its early form, the film leaned heavily on football action, focusing on plays, strategies, and the mechanics of the game. But something was missing. The audience could see what the team did on the field, but they didn't fully understand who these players were when the helmets came off. The rewrite introduced a completely different environment, one where structure disappears. In the bar, the replacement players are no longer defined by positions or plays. They are individuals, each carrying their own insecurities, attitudes, and ways of coping with being outsiders in a system that never fully accepted them. The interaction with the cheerleaders intensifies this contrast. On one side, you have the polished, image-driven world of professional football. On the other, a group of misfits who don't quite fit the mold. What makes the scene work is how it evolves. It begins with chaos, awkwardness, and confrontation, but gradually shifts into connection. The players start to understand each other, not through structured teamwork, but through shared experience. That shift is critical because it lays the emotional foundation for everything that follows on the field. A team doesn't become cohesive through strategy alone, it becomes cohesive through trust, and this is where that trust begins to form. The brilliance of the scene lies in how natural it feels. It doesn't interrupt the story, it completes it. It gives the audience a reason to care about these characters beyond their performance. And it demonstrates something essential about filmmaking. Sometimes the most important moments aren't planned from the start, but emerge when creators recognize what the story truly needs to resonate on a deeper level. Number 7. Reeves wanted a more serious sports tone. While The Replacements is often remembered for its humor and chaotic energy, Keanu Reeves approached it with a completely different mindset, one that reshaped the emotional core of the entire film. To him, this wasn't a comedy built around jokes and exaggerated situations. It was a story about failure, pressure and the rare opportunity to rebuild when everything seems lost. He saw Shane Falco as a man defined not by success, but by a very public collapse, a quarterback who had once reached the highest level only to fall when it mattered most. That backstory became the foundation of his performance. Instead of leaning into the comedic tone, Reeves focused on restraint. He avoided overacting, choosing instead to communicate through subtle expressions, quiet reactions, and moments of hesitation that reveal the character's internal struggle. Falco isn't trying to entertain, he's trying to prove something, not just to others, but to himself. Every decision he makes carries the weight of his past, and that tension is always present, even in the film's lighter moments. This approach creates a powerful contrast within the narrative. While the team around him embraces unpredictability, humor, and chaos, Falco remains grounded, almost isolated in his determination. That contrast doesn't weaken the comedy, it sharpens it. The humor feels more impactful because it exists alongside something real. More importantly, it changes how the audience engages with the story. Instead of simply laughing at the situation, viewers become invested in the outcome. They want to see Falco succeed, not because it's funny, but because it matters. That emotional investment is what elevates the film beyond a typical sports comedy. It transforms it into a story about resilience, redemption, and the courage to face failure one more time. Number 8. Gene Hackman played it completely straight. In a film filled with eccentric characters and unpredictable humor, Gene Hackman made a deliberate choice that quietly defined the entire tone of The Replacements. He approached Coach Jimmy McGinty not as part of a comedy, but as if he were in a serious, character-driven drama. From the beginning, Hackman understood that if every performance leaned into exaggeration, the story would lose its balance. So he grounded his portrayal in realism, discipline, and quiet authority. McGinty doesn't rely on dramatic speeches or emotional outbursts. He observes, evaluates, and responds with control. His belief in the players isn't loud, it's steady. He sees potential where others see failure, and he acts on that belief with confidence that never feels forced. That restraint becomes his defining strength. This choice creates a striking contrast. While the players around him are chaotic, unpredictable, and often comedic, McGinty remains consistent. That stability makes everything around him feel more dynamic. The humor becomes sharper because it has something solid to push against, and the emotional moments become more powerful because they are anchored in sincerity. Hackman's approach also influences the rest of the cast. By treating the material seriously, he raises the standard for every scene. The film stops feeling like a collection of comedic moments and starts to feel like a cohesive story with real stakes. In the end, this balance is what allows the film to endure. The comedy entertains, but the grounded performances give it meaning. And through that combination, The Replacements becomes more than just a sports film. It becomes a story about belief, resilience, and the impact of someone who refuses to give up on people others have already dismissed. Number 9. The NFL refused to officially support the movie. One of the most revealing realities behind The Replacements is that the very institution it was built around wanted to keep its distance. The NFL refused to officially support the production, declining to license team names, logos, and branding. At first glance, that might look like a routine business decision, but the deeper reason exposes something far more sensitive. The film's premise mirrors the controversial 1987 NFL strike, a moment that forced the league into an uncomfortable spotlight, raising questions about loyalty, money, and the replaceability of its own players. That wasn't a story the NFL wanted to revive in the public imagination, but that rejection didn't weaken the film, it reshaped it. Without access to real teams, the filmmakers were forced to build an entirely fictional league from scratch. The Washington Sentinels became more than just a substitute name. They became a symbol of independence from the system. Every uniform, every logo, every visual detail had to be carefully designed to feel authentic without copying reality. That process demanded creativity, precision, and a deep understanding of what makes professional football visually convincing. Ironically, the absence of official branding pushed the film closer to its emotional core. Instead of relying on recognition, it relied on storytelling. The audience wasn't distracted by familiar teams, they were drawn into the journey of the players themselves. That shift created a stronger connection, because the focus moved from spectacle to substance. In the end, what looked like a limitation became one of the film's defining strengths. By standing outside the NFL's shadow, The Replacements found its own identity, one that feels just as real, if not more so, because it isn't tied to a brand, but to a story about opportunity, risk, and redemption. Number 10. The stadium crowds were mostly real fans. When you watch the game scenes in The Replacements, there's a raw, unpredictable energy that feels impossible to fake, and that's because much of it wasn't. Instead of relying on digital effects, the filmmakers made a deliberate decision to use real people to fill the stadium. Thousands of fans were brought in, not just to occupy seats, but to react as if they were watching a real game unfold. This choice changed everything. Real crowds don't move in perfect sync, and they don't respond on cue with identical reactions. They bring chaos, spontaneity, and emotional intensity that no computer-generated effect could replicate at the time. The cheers rise unevenly, the boos feel genuine, and the overall atmosphere becomes something alive rather than constructed. To maximize the illusion of a packed stadium, the production used strategic staging techniques. Fans were placed in visible sections, then moved between takes to create the appearance of a much larger audience. Combined with clever editing, this approach transformed a limited number of people into what felt like a full-scale NFL crowd. For the actors, this environment added a layer of pressure that changed their performances. Keanu Reeves stepped onto the field not in front of a silent set, but in front of thousands of voices reacting in real time. That energy couldn't be ignored, it had to be absorbed and responded to. The result is a viewing experience that feels immersive. The crowd isn't just background noise, it becomes part of the story, amplifying every moment and making each play feel like it truly matters. And that authenticity is something audiences can feel instantly, even if they don't realize why. Number 11. Keanu Reeves took a pay cut, so Gene Hackman could be cast. Behind the scenes of The Replacements lies a decision that quietly shaped the entire film. Keanu Reeves made a significant financial sacrifice to ensure that Gene Hackman could be cast as Coach McGinty. At the time, the production operated within a constrained budget, and bringing in a two-time Academy Award-winning actor seemed financially unrealistic. Reeves recognized something essential. This wasn't just about adding another name to the cast, it was about strengthening the foundation of the story. So Reeves chose to reduce his own salary, prioritizing the film's quality over personal gain. That decision had a direct impact on the final product. Hackman's performance became the emotional anchor of the film, influencing not only his scenes but the tone of the entire production. His interactions with the team added weight, making their journey feel more meaningful and their struggles more real. What makes this moment so remarkable is how rare it is. Hollywood is often driven by individual contracts and negotiations, where personal interests take priority. Reeves' choice broke that pattern, showing a level of commitment that goes beyond the role itself. The audience may never see that sacrifice on screen, but they feel its effect. The film carries a sense of balance and depth that might not have existed otherwise. And that's the quiet truth behind great performances. Sometimes they are built on decisions made long before the cameras start rolling. Number 12. Test audiences wanted more romance. After the first cut of The Replacements was completed, it was shown to test audiences, and their reaction revealed something unexpected. While viewers enjoyed the humor and the football action, many felt that the emotional connection between the main characters wasn't fully developed. The romance existed, but it felt distant, almost overshadowed by everything else happening in the story. This feedback created a turning point. The filmmakers had to decide whether to ignore it or adapt. They chose to refine rather than reinvent. Instead of adding dramatic or exaggerated romantic scenes, they focused on subtlety, small gestures, quiet conversations, and moments that felt natural rather than forced. These changes might seem minor, but they had a significant impact. The relationship became more believable, more integrated into the story, and more reflective of real human connection. It didn't dominate the narrative, but it added an emotional layer that made the characters more relatable. What's interesting is how invisible these adjustments are. Most viewers don't notice them consciously, yet they shape how the story feels. They provide balance, giving the audience something to connect with beyond the outcome of the games. This process highlights how films evolve even after production. Audience reactions can reveal gaps that creators might not see during filming. In this case, the feedback didn't change the film's identity, it strengthened it, ensuring that the emotional core matched the intensity of the action on the field. Number 13. The football games were edited like action sequences. The football scenes in The Replacements don't just feel intense, they feel cinematic in a way that goes beyond traditional sports film. That's because they were edited using the language of action movies rather than standard game footage. Every play was constructed to create momentum. Quick cuts, shifting angles, and close-up shots were used to pull the audience directly into the action. One moment you're seeing the entire field, the next you're inside the collision, experiencing the impact up close. This constant movement keeps the energy high and prevents the scenes from feeling repetitive. What makes this approach so effective is how it blends realism with cinematic intensity. Because the actors were supported by real athletes, the foundation of each play was already authentic. The editing then amplifies that authenticity, turning ordinary sequences into moments that feel dramatic and urgent. This technique also serves the narrative. The games aren't just background, they are central to the story. By treating them like action sequences, the filmmakers ensure that each moment carries emotional weight, keeping the audience invested from start to finish. The result is a unique viewing experience where sports and cinema merge seamlessly. It's not just about watching a game, it's about feeling the tension, the unpredictability, and the stakes behind every play. And that intensity is what makes these scenes memorable long after the film ends. Number 14. The play calling jargon was carefully researched. One of the most subtle yet important details in the replacements is the accuracy of its football language. The play calling sequences may seem like background noise, but they are built on real systems used by professional teams. To achieve this level of authenticity, the production brought in experienced consultants, including former NFL players, to guide the cast. They explained how quarterbacks communicate using coded language combinations of numbers, colors, and signals designed to convey strategy quickly while keeping opponents guessing. For Keanu Reeves, this meant learning more than just lines. He had to understand the rhythm and confidence behind the words. A quarterback doesn't hesitate, he commands. That authority had to come through in every call, every adjustment, every moment in the huddle. This attention to detail adds a layer of realism that strengthens the entire film. Even if viewers don't fully understand the terminology, they can sense that it's genuine. It creates immersion, making the world of the film feel believable. Small elements like this often go unnoticed, but they play a critical role in shaping the audience's experience. They build trust, ensuring that every aspect of the film, no matter how minor, contributes to the illusion of reality. And that trust is what allows the story to fully connect. Number 15. The football scenes were shot in a real NFL stadium. To bring the replacements to life, the filmmakers made a decision that elevated everything they chose to film in a real NFL stadium. Instead of building artificial sets, they used an authentic environment, complete with professional lighting, real locker rooms, and the massive scale of a true football field. This choice transformed the visual experience. The size of the stadium, the height of the stands, and the atmosphere created by the setting added a level of realism that simply couldn't be replicated on a soundstage. Every scene felt big. For the actors, this environment changed how they performed. Walking onto a real field, surrounded by thousands of spectators, created a sense of pressure that mirrored actual competition. That pressure translated into their performances, making the action feel genuine rather than staged. The cinematography took full advantage of this setting, using wide shots and dynamic angles to capture the scale and intensity of the stadium. The result is a visual style that closely resembles a live broadcast, further blurring the line between fiction and reality. In the end, this decision reinforces the film's commitment to authenticity. It shows that creating something believable isn't just about acting, it's about placing the story in an environment where it can truly come alive. And that realism is what continues to draw audiences back, even years later. In the end, The Replacements isn't just a sports story, it's a reminder that second chances often come when no one expects them, and success belongs to those willing to step forward despite failure. Its legacy endures because it speaks to resilience, belief, and redemption. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments which fact surprised you the most.